Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Right on, writers, and welcome first-time viewers to the Books by Adrian author platform and our flagship show, Livestream Sunday. If you are new, my name is Adrian Santiago. Hello, how are you? I am your host. I'll be your host today and every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Same time, same channel. We have 8 more episodes scheduled for Season 3 of Livestream Sunday after today. I am so glad that you're here for Episode 8 of Season 3. I thank each and every one of you for your time and your support. I love it that you guys are here and that so many of you are here early. I see at least 3 people in the chat already. You guys are oh, I love you guys so much. All right. First, for those of you watching who are not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. That part is very important because it lets you know when I go live and it lets you know when I upload new videos, and both of those things happen both scheduled and also by surprise. So hit that bell. Don't forget to leave a like on the video. This really helps the channel to reach more people and to grow. If you didn't make it to the live show and you're watching this on the replay, take a moment to leave a comment down below telling us the title of the most erotic story you've ever written. Today's episode will feature 3 short segments totaling out to a 1-hour runtime. We'll take some questions from the chat in the 3rd segment. Throughout the show, please label any questions for Miss Grimm with a big Q so I can easily find them in the chat when the time comes. All right, enough of the business. Let's get into it. Miss Regina Grimm is an erotic fantasy author retelling Snow White as the series I never knew I always wanted to read. Snow White and the Wicked Queen was followed by Snow White and the Vicious Curse, and then by Snow White and the Seven Thieves. On October 26th, that's coming right around the corner, she is publishing the final chapter in this darkly erotic series, Snow White and the Poisoned Apple. I'm fascinated by Miss Grimm's take on the fairy tale and honored to have her as today's guest. Please help me welcome Regina Grimm to the show.
Hello, Adrian.
Hello, Miss Grimm. How are you today?
Oh, I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Welcome to Livestream Sunday on Books by Adrian. I am really excited for today's episode. I haven't done one like this in a while. The closest thing that I've gotten to this was in season 1. I had Miss Polly Pocket on to talk about polyamory in fiction. It's been quite a while since we've had a nice adult topic like this on. So I'm going to give you the floor for a second here and go ahead and introduce yourself to the people at home and let us know a little bit about yourself, what you write, and anything you have coming up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Adrian. Hello, everybody. My name is Regina Grimm. I've been writing since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, but only got into erotic fiction, well, probably about 8 or 10 years ago. Only seriously, though, with a goal to publish in the end of 2020. So, I'm publishing my 4th book this month. I have 2 more stories that are kind of prequels to this series in the works, and a few other shorts that are hopefully coming out early 2021, all along the same kind of retelling of classic stories or stories from our childhood, but like the original dirtier, grittier, darker fairy tale versions, not the kind of sweetified Disney version. These are like going right back to the Grimm's fairy tales. So that's it. I'm a Canadian. I live on Vancouver Island, and I'm really proud of that because it's gorgeous here. And that's about it. So I'm just really excited to be here. Books by Adrian. I mean, this is fantastic.
We're excited to have you. I'm excited to have you. It's going to be great. In fact, let's see how many people are excited to have you right now because we do, as I said, have some people in the chat already. Let's take a look. We had our hellos over here. Hello, hello. Adam Stevenson is in the house. Who else? Barrett Laurie. Barrett Laurie. Hello. Always good to see you, Barrett. All right. Look at him. He's doing the Lord's work. Barrett, you know that you're not on the payroll, right? You work too hard for me, bro. You work too hard for me. All right, all right. Let's see. Man, they've been talking for a while, so I want to go ahead and throw all of these highs out here. All right, so we already have lovers of twisted fairy tales in the house.
Nice.
So it's gonna be a good time. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and jump right into the interview.
Hit me.
I'm gonna hit you with an animation first because that's how
Perfect.
I roll. And that's all to create time while I look for the.
Your animations are fantastic. I really appreciate them.
I appreciate you saying so. I work really hard on them. I don't know if they pay off ultimately in like bringing viewers in, but the viewers I have, I want them to enjoy. You know, like you come to see a visual thing, you would want it to be, visual.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, Regina, your website about page tells us that you've wanted to write since you were old enough to understand books were written by people rather than being things that just existed. Honestly, even though I knew books were written by people, I never truly understood the magnitude of that until I tried to write one myself. And so I'm still learning that myself. And with that in mind, what was the biggest reality check when you finally decided to publish your story?
Oh, it was the kick in the ego. Okay, and I say that with all love and, compassion for self and others, but the process of writing I've found has been it's kind of these two pieces. So there's the before this last leg of the journey where I actually started publishing. So kind of pre 2020, I was all about writing the drafts. I can't even tell you, I think I have 7 or 8 finished draft manuscripts sitting there that need to be worked on and finished and put out into the world. And so many ideas. My poor little brain just aches with all the ideas that need to escape. But the process of actually sitting down, going back through my work and editing them, that has been the biggest journey for me. So getting over the part of not wanting to have to go back and reread my work, being willing to take criticism, being willing to ask for support and feedback, hearing some pretty brutal feedback that honestly saved me. It was really early on in this last journey, and it was so important to hear it when I heard it.
Hmm.
So it was humbling and important because it allowed me to kind of give myself some space where I was allowed to go through the process and make mistakes and grow from them while still enjoying it and not being too disheartened by all of the you musts that exist in, I think, the writing world.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. There's that especially with the first like harsh critiques, you and not harsh in a bullying kind of way, but just brutally honest. You know what I mean? Sometimes you need a nice reality check.
Yeah,
The thing is knowing that ultimately you're working to make your story better and your book better in the long run, right?
absolutely.
Can you give us an elevator pitch for your Snow White series?
I've always said, well, I mean, long and short, it's an erotic retelling of the classic Grimm's fairy tales, so dark and dirty, with all of the stuff that happened behind closed doors that no one's ever seen. And I think my tagline for a lot of things are these aren't the fairy tales your grandma told you. That's that's my shtick.
And I really like the idea that, fairy tales originally were very dark and to this day even new ones are still have, their dark elements to them, but a lot of the Disney-fied, versions as you referred to them that are kind of cleaned up for the families. They're not quite as dark, and you wonder where that edge went. And I really like the idea of not only going back to having that edge, but going further and showing you even more.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been a fun journey.
All right. I don't know if my screen seems to be giving me a little lag every now and then, so I hope that my Wi-Fi is okay. But I just want to give a heads up out there that I am seeing some lag. I'm sure you guys are seeing some lag, so I'm sorry about that. We'll keep our fingers crossed. The weather is nice. Well, there should be no reason. All right. What was it about Snow White specifically that stood out to you as the one to start this author journey with?
It's okay, just brutally honest, there were 7 men. That seemed and then it turns out there's actually 9 because the huntsman and the prince, so it was just that simple, and it started off more as not a joke, more of a dare, where someone was, I decided in 2020 that it was time to finally publish, to learn how to do this, to go through them, to actually do it instead of getting stuck in that, but I don't know how
Yeah.
place, which that's where I've been for, 39 years. Well, maybe 33 years because I think I was 6 the first time I wrote a story.
Mm.
So to get past that, I had to do something that was a little bit separate from me and a little bit more. It was something I could kind of pick up and set down, something really concrete. And so it seemed like, okay, a fairy tale. They start off there maybe 6,000 words. Like I've got a great book that's full of translations, and I thought if I took that and spun it out, it could be something that I could work with and manipulate in a way that made it interesting and fun. It would challenge me because writing sex scenes can be really challenging. And
Yeah.
then when I looked at my options, Snow White just seemed like it had the most play with the most characters and the most potential for some really juicy sequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The few that I have in my manuscript, I've finished my first draft, but I have to say that the majority of my sex scenes so far, what I have, I consider placeholders almost. Like I accomplish in them what I need to story wise, but I know that I need to go back and massively like rewrite them into something far more titillating and enjoyable because it, it's so hard to write a good sex scene. I find it one of the biggest challenges of my novel.
Yeah.
Um, can you explain your release schedule for your books? Because you've put out 3 of them pretty quickly back to back here, and the 4th one again is right around the corner. You explained earlier that you have a whole bunch of manuscripts that you've been working on for a long time. So, what? How did that kind of work out for you? How did you release the books in the time that you did?
Oh, I released one every 2 months,
Good
which
grief!
is it's insane. In
Yes,
hindsight, it was ridiculous. I'm not exactly sure what I was on when I decided that this was a great plan.
must have
Um,
been pretty good stuff. I'll
oh
tell you
my
what.
goodness. Well, I mean, when I sit and look back at it, there's this piece of me that is like, "What? Why would you think this was a good idea?" But it was the reality was, I had hurdles to get over. I had to get over fear. I had to get over just getting stuck. I had to get over procrastination. I had all of these barriers that had held me in place for so long, and I knew one of the best ways to do that is to build momentum. So my original plan was okay, so you've written the whole thing. I wrote it between kind of like October of 2020 and like April, before April. I had the whole story written out. Then I broke it into pieces to try and work on one chunk at a time and thought,
Mm.
okay, no problem, it's written. Yeah, no, it was drafted.
Yeah,
So again, there's the kick in the ego,
yeah.
um, which meant that like every month I have been running. I've run my team ragged. I have like an editor who I think wants to kill me. Like with every single one of them, I'm like, okay, so here's the timeline, and I'm pretty sure they just think I'm insane. But this was the way I knew I had to do it, and once I
Yeah.
set that goal, I wrote it down. So there wasn't a lot of options. It was not do or die, but it was definitely do or else. I knew there was just this was the way I was gonna get over everything that had held me still.
Right on. So it was this sort of battle strategy almost where you were just like, I just got to go all in.
That's a
Well,
really good way of looking at it. Yeah.
this this fourth book is the final one for the Snow White series. What
Mhm.
do you have planned for your next book? What do you have coming up next after that series?
Well, these two prequels, which will cover kind of the origin story of the Wicked Queen and then Snow White's parents, they'll both be novella, shorter books. Those are well in the works. But then the one that I'm most excited about is another shorter story, Goldilocks and the Three Bear Hunters.
Of
So
course.
that's yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. It's been it's again, it started off as kind of like it was almost like a joke just to start somewhere and what could be a funny way of doing this. But then once I get into it, these characters they come alive and they haunt my dreams and they sit and natter at me when I'm trying to do other work and you can't let them go and then I can't um I don't want to disappoint them by giving them something fluffy or something shallow. It has to be something gritty and dark and kind of honoring where they're going instead of where they came from, which was again just to write something that is pure escapism really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like what you're talking about, to me it sounds like a reverence for the original material.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like giving it the respect that it deserves, regardless of what genre you are writing it in. That's good. That's a good, honest way to come about a story. And I feel like, the best stories are written out of a place of honesty. You know what I mean? That's why
Oh,
we
yeah.
write fiction, right? We write
Yeah.
stuff that we made up. We tell lies to tell truths. I think who was it who said that? Neil Gaiman? Somebody said that.
That
Um,
sounds about right, yeah.
a reminder to everybody in the chat: any questions for Miss Grimm? Denote them with a Q so that I can find them later. I already see one or two in there, so let's keep them coming. And when we get to the third part of the episode, I'll start throwing those up on the screen. Okay. Which, by the way, I'm so excited that the StreamYard chat is working again. Miss
Yeah.
Grimm, you don't know, but the last 2 or 3 weeks we haven't had it, so I've been having to like read and copy and paste it, and it's just been a nightmare. It's so nice to have it back. I don't know what I did different, but I fixed it.
Well done.
All right, so there are some sample chapters on Goodreads. The link is down in the description for anybody interested. Can you tell us a little bit about the sample chapters and what people can expect to find in it?
I
I mean, not
should
spoiler wise, just,
sure.
pitch them to them.
Well, okay, and this is embarrassing because it's been a while since I've been on there and looked because I've just been running full tilt publishing new.
Gotcha.
I
Yeah.
believe it's the first chapter of at least the first 2 books. That's what I'm running from a little bit of assumption, so apologies if this isn't 100% accurate, but
No
I think
problem. I'm looking it up right now while you talk, and I'll throw it up on the screen in a second here. Go
oh,
ahead.
perfect. Because yeah, I think that's where the sample chapters just start from the beginning of the book, so you get a feel of where I'm starting.
All right, here we
Get
go.
kind of a feel for the rhythm and the imagery. I mean, when I look back and when I talk to people about my books, they talk a lot about the picture I paint. So that's exciting that it's this is really cool. I just need to spend more time on all of the websites. But yeah, I think that's what we have is the first chapter. Oh, ha, or the sample chapters. My books are labeled chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 instead of
I
book
noticed that.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, that threw me off at first. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you about that too.
And in hindsight, that was a strange decision that I probably wouldn't make again. But I didn't want anyone feeling like I kind of bait and switched with here's a book. It isn't. It's part of the story. It
Yeah.
is a series. Now, having said that, book one specifically could absolutely be read as a standalone. It
Mm.
just there's no conclusion to it. It's a character development.
Yeah, it's
So
a
the
continue.
rest of them are yeah, exactly. It's a took a fairy tale and it's four books long.
That's probably why you felt such a strong need to release them so quickly. Also, is the fact that they're so like tied together. You know, folks are waiting for what happens next, so you just wanted to kind of like keep them coming. I like it.
Oh, good, thanks. Yeah, no, it's I have heard that with some people that they start writing them, they get to like book 3 and well, where's the last one? And I'm like, it's coming, I promise, just a couple more weeks. Hold on. So
And
yeah, I mean, that was definitely an element of it. I know there's nothing more frustrating than you read a book and then you got to wait 2 years for what happens next.
this
Yeah,
is book 4, yes.
this is book 4. Yeah,
All
I
right,
just got
everybody, get psyched.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. Book 4 is probably my favorite.
It's labeled the final chapter.
It is. I didn't want anyone confused again. Chapters, final chapter. Done. Tying a little ribbon on it.
I like it. All right. Okay. So, what lessons did you learn in publishing the first book? How did you apply those lessons to each concurrent book? What have you learned overall? I guess is
Such
what
a
I'm
good.
asking.
Yeah. The process of publishing is immense. That's what I learned. And I learned there is 1,000 different ways to do it right. And no matter what anyone says, their way, their experience, their success is not an exclusive thing.
Hmm.
So what I found was that was part of what held me back for so long was I was part of a writers group, a local writers group where there were some fantastic writers who had been very successful in traditional publishing and lots of different things. And they all had these rules about you have to do it this way. You have to write, for example, you have to write with a pen. You have to edit with a highlighter. Like they all had these really weird little rules. And there was only one way to publish, and you couldn't do it any other way. And it was so stymieing that was part of the reason this hasn't happened sooner. So once I started the process of just like it's going to get done, I'm going to figure it out. I realized that it's absolutely possible, and it's important to keep going and expect painful learnings along the way, because no matter how many I wish I'd known this when I started blogs you read, you only learn things by doing them. So
Yeah.
you got to get in the frickin' trenches and really dig in. So there was a lot of that this past year, these last 8 months of try something, see what happens, see how it goes. Try not to get offended when people are like, "Well, geez, didn't you check your analytics?" I don't know what that means yet, so I'm still working on that piece. There's been a few things where someone will be like, didn't you know about the ISBN?" I'm like, "Well, no, but I'll get it. Just you're not
I
gonna learn it all at once."
I look at my analytics every week and I have no idea what they mean. I look at them and I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I've looked at them now. I can tell everyone that yes, I look at my analytics.
That's I think I finally understand the ones from my website and my newsletter. I think I
Yeah.
understand those 2 because they're pretty much this is how many things and this is the percentage of clickings. That's it. That's all I got. But like Instagram, Reels, Facebook, all the marketing stuff is still I'm
Yeah.
hopeless. I'll get it. I will figure it out, but I'm also working with a very talented PA and she's I think she's got my back, so I think we're good to go.
That's what everybody needs, man. Is you need somebody in your corner because you know being an indie author is one thing. Being self-published, you know, it's awesome to be able to have that kind of badge on your lapel. But dude, being an independent author is like nine to 12 jobs.
Yes.
It's not one job. There's so many things that you have to do for yourself. And the irony is that even if you are a traditionally published author that is signed by the biggest of companies, you're still responsible for your marketing. Like they're
Mhm.
not doing that for you. You still have to do all that work. So it's like when people ask you like, "Where's the book? Why don't you just write the book?" You're like, "Dude, do you know how many jobs I'm doing right
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
Like, do you have any idea how long this stuff takes to do? Oh, so many parts to being an author. It's crazy."
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so my own novel is an adult sci-fi fantasy thriller, and it does feature a handful of sex scenes or otherwise erotic sequences in what will be a 30 chapter novel. I believe there's a total of 5 scenes, and I have a sneaking suspicion that this number will grow in the sequel books. I believe a character's sexuality to be as important to the character study as anything else about them, and I find it hard to tell a full story about a character without exploring that side of them too. What is the biggest piece of advice you can give to new writers when tackling erotic scenes in general? In other words, what's the biggest mistake you see among new writers making in their sex scenes, and that you would love to advise them to do differently?
Ah, that is such a deep question. And I think I'm going to answer it probably different than I was going to a minute ago. Um, More than anything, I think if you want to write sex scenes, you have to read sex scenes because then hear you start to hear what you like, you start to hear what works for you. I have some really strong beliefs around, like all of my sex scenes it's all consensual. Now, there's dark magic, there's like not well, little pieces of coercion. There's a lot of darkness in them, but I can't get behind
Yeah,
non-consensual sex. So that's a
yeah,
really hard line for me. This is a strong value. Um, and I think when if you're going to explore something as important as essentially modeling a potential sexual encounter, there's a responsibility to make sure that what you're putting out there is something that you feel comfortable with, because people learn from these things, and they learn from the language, they learn from reading stuff. And I know how impactful the books I read when I was younger were on my understanding of the world around me, including sex.
hmm
So I guess my if yes, start by reading things and decide what works for you and what doesn't, from a reader's place first. So then when you have your story and you tell that piece of it specifically, it comes from it comes from a place you want it to come from, and not necessarily just because you think sex should go there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That it comes from a natural place.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I know there's a lot of rules around what should and shouldn't be done, I think in writing as with everything,
Mm,
but I feel like it's such a creative medium that sometimes we get so stuck in the science of writing and what's proper and what's right, and that there's all these rigid rules around it, that sometimes we forget that no, you're creating something out of the
yeah,
ether, like, and that should be a really powerful place to go play and then end up with something that you're proud of. So if it's something that you would like to read, you've written it well. That's all that matters.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you approach these scenes like you would any other, like for example, if I was writing an action adventure,
Mhm.
right? The way to make your action scenes powerful and make them matter is to tie them into the actual character development, tie them into the emotional core of the story, have them actually have an influence on the plot and the characters, have them be an integral part of the story. And if you're writing an erotic fantasy, then you know the erotic is to the fantasy as the action is to the adventure, right? Like it has to be this big like tentpole scene that folks are excited to get to, but it has to matter. It has to have some sort of emotional core to the character. You know, it has to tell you something about the character. It has to move the story forward. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, if you
and
end the
again,
scene and you're
like
in
you
the
were
same
saying,
spot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Like the way that you were saying it, like you almost have to you have to feel it. There has to be something to feel there, you know?
Mhm.
All right, let me see. What do we got next here? Your series draws upon the nostalgia of youthful fairy tale stories and brings them into our adult lives. So this is something that resonates with me because having been a teenager, reading comic books in which the female characters are drawn to help usher us all into puberty and everything.
Yeah.
Now there's cosplay thirst traps on TikTok, you know. So Then there's everything going on in fan fiction. People are taking the fandoms from their youths and converting them into their kinks in adulthood. So, do you get any feedback from readers about how your stories affect them? And how do you deal with people who get offended or outraged that a fairy tale character is being portrayed in a more adult story like this?
Generally, and I'm just sweeping generalizations, the feedback I have had has been really, really positive. Now that speaks to the fact that I'm finding my tribe. I'm finding there's no hidden agenda right on the cover. It says it's an erotic retelling. Like there's no I try and make it abundantly clear. If you're cracking this book, you know what you're getting yourself into.
Mm.
There was only one comment that kind of struck me, and I was chatting with some other writers on Facebook and said, I asked some question, and a man responded with, "Well, what you're writing is, oh, what was the word he used? It was sacrilegious. That what I was doing was sacrilegious, putting
Because
sex
Snow
into a
White
fairy tale."
is a Bible story? What is it? What is what is he
Well,
talking about?
I mean, I drew some assumptions there because I thought that's an interesting way of looking at this. Now,
Sacrilegious.
from
That's a
someone
powerful
who's
word.
like, right, it seemed very, it was really, and at first I was like, oh God, have I have I undone someone's childhood with this? Then I thought about it and I was like, wait a second. First of all, the original fairy tale, there's like hints of cannibalism. There's infanticide. There is like attempted murder a bunch of times. There's black magic. Um, and then there's torture and there's just a lot of really dark themes. Again,
Mm.
not Disney, but the original stories were brutal, just utterly brutal. So just to throw some sex in there, I feel like it depends on what you're looking at, but if I'm taking a childhood story and taking the sacred out of it, it is possible that we might need to revisit why that story was so sacred for you and
Yeah.
why any retelling of it wouldn't be as sacrilegious as one that's erotic because I get it. Like erotica is not for everybody and I know sexuality is a really hard topic for a lot of people. It's still really taboo, and I totally get that. Um, yeah, it's complex, and I'm gonna do it anyway. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think with that one gentleman, I just at first I was like horrified and wanted to apologize, but I didn't. And then I thought about it later and thought like I felt kind of sorry for him because um, if all it takes is my little books to destroy your childhood, you probably needed a little stronger childhood, or maybe don't read my books. I don't know. There's options. Yeah. So that was it.
So, how do you ensure that your sex scenes are important to the story, move the plot forward, say something about the character?
Ah, it is sometimes it's incredibly easy. It is like a um there's an interaction between I'm trying to think if there's any I don't know if there's any spoilers here. Maybe little spoilers, so you can plug your ears if you want. There's an interaction between Snow White and the huntsman that at the beginning I didn't know it was coming, which that happens a lot when I write. I'm going along and suddenly things are happening. I'm like, I had no idea where it was coming from. But it was the only thing that could happen. There had to be a sex scene there. There had to be this interaction. It had to be really powerful and potent and graphic and kind of almost it was a lot. Um so sometimes like that they happen because they must, and other times it's the right time for a sex scene because of what you've built up to this moment, just like it would be, time to go to battle because everything's been laid out for that. So I feel like most of the time I let the characters drive. And when they know they need to get more intimate, when they know they need to sort out some kind of a power play, when there is something to be said for that really visceral communication and kind of union of two people or seven or eight people, it happens. And so it's probably something I will explore more and get more serious about as I progress as an author.
Mm.
But for now, it's just been gut. It's been when it feels right, that's when it happens.
I've had a couple of pop-ups like that myself. So I know exactly what you're talking about, where you're like, I didn't know this is where it was headed, but
Yeah.
here we are. um, seems like after waiting, oh, I think we already talked about this actually. Your this draws more upon your release schedule, but I was wondering if 2020 and quarantine and all that had anything to do with it. Being as urgently releasing each book as it was.
No. This 2020 was the year that I knew I had to publish, honestly, because my mother died in October of 2020, not of COVID, just she died. And it was one of those moments where you face with a little bit of
Sorry to
your own
hear.
mortality. Thank you. Uh, and it was one of those ones where I've been talking about this since, like I said, since I was 6. I'm gonna be a
Mm,
published author someday. Well, someday never comes if you don't sit down and write it. If you don't put it out there, if you don't start editing, you have to keep taking those steps. And so to lose, there was just my sister, my mom, and I, like, we were just the tight little family, and to lose one third of that, it shifted so many things. One of them was recognizing I'm not gonna be here forever. If I want something and I don't do something about it, it's only my fault. So I had to get my crap together and start putting pen to paper and then just making mistakes and learning as I go.
I
Um,
feel that. I feel
yeah,
that.
there's right, and I think we forget sometimes there's been so much talk about, the tragedy of people dying, and I mean, it always happens. It's just COVID's made us more aware of it, but the reality is all of us are here for, we're here for a good time, not a long time, and if you really want something, baby, you gotta chase it. Like, it's yeah, so, yes, I've been chasing it like a wild man down a hill, chasing a wheel of cheese, like those cheese chaser people in the UK. But it's just this was how it had to happen, and that was, so that
It's a
was
very
it was one of
vivid
those
image.
gifts.
You really put a word picture in my head. I like
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good one.
it.
So, yeah,
Let
it was a bit of that.
let's go into some actual craft questions here real
Sure.
quick. What's your process like? Plotter or pantser?
I was a pantser for a long time. I've become more of a plotter. Yeah, it's evolving into more of a plotter keeps me, I get more productive if I know where I'm going.
Yeah, yeah. I've been hearing a lot of rebirth and conversion stories lately from a lot of pantsers who, after trying to release their first book, are finding out, oh no, I got to be a little bit of a plotter. Like, yeah, man, of course you do. You can't pants a giant novel. Are you out of your mind?
I mean, don't get me
How,
wrong, I have, but it's
yeah,
again, it's like,
but you
so
really
it's
shouldn't.
October, and then later
Yeah,
it's like, I know
yeah.
people read it, they're like, "What the hell is going on?" I'm like, "I don't know." I wrote it. It's 500,000 words of I don't know.
It's all right there. I don't know.
Just figure it out.
Just just read it, man.
Yeah.
Like I wrote it. Just
Didn't edit it or reread it, but I wrote it. Doesn't mean shit.
So how do you approach story structure? Pacing, that sort of thing.
Um, well, okay, with this project, it was pretty much set out ahead of time. I took a structure that already existed and worked from there. But what I found was really interesting was it started the whole book was maybe only 40 or 50, maybe I think it was about 70,000 words, the first
Mm,
draft. And it's pushing like I think 120 or 130 now after going back, rereading it, revising it, and editing. And it's changed so much. Part of it was after the feedback that I got based on, the original. I was trying to stay really close to the original kind of vibe of a fairy tale, but it's very telling. The Once Upon a Time piece, it pretty
yeah.
much just tells you a story as opposed to drawing you in. So when I got that feedback of, yeah, nobody's going to want to read 70,000 words of you telling them a story, it shifted everything. And then it became, okay, how do I make this visual and how do I add better, like everything? Have them talk to each other. Who knew conversation was important? Go dialogue. Um, yeah, so I think so when it comes to pace with this project specifically, because I knew where I had to get to, the plot, like really plotting was already existing. It was a matter of getting there as beautifully as possible. And And then sometimes this happened very specifically in book, I think it was 3, 2 or 3. We got to I was reading through it after the first draft and actually said to my editor, "There's not enough sex in it, is there?" And she's like, "No, go back and do it again." So because I, stamped it as like this is an erotic novel, part of the pacing was, okay, there has to be an erotic you can't just have 5 chapters with no sex in them because
Yeah, you got to spice it up. Yeah,
yeah, people are there. They
for
know what they
sure.
wanna see, and if you skip that, you gotta go back and put it back in. So, um, that's not a very concrete or elegant way of doing things, but it's very I work from the gut a lot.
I like it. I like it. All right, we are going to switch gears here and go into the topic for today,
Mm.
which we've been talking about the entire time. But I guess we're gonna go more in depth. Looks like my animation is a little slow. Oh, lag. I don't like it. All right, um, so today's topic of discussion is focused on sex to reveal character, and we've kind of touched on this, like I said, so far a couple times here, and everything in a well-told story should either reveal character, move plot forward, both, and that remains true for erotic scenes and sequences of that like. What is one or more sex scenes in a book, movie, whatever that you can think of that reveals character in a powerful way and effective way? I have my own answer. I would love to hear yours.
Okay, what's funny is the one that's popping to mind is it's erotic in the loosest sense of the term. It was True Lies. Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I went to film school and we studied this scene, and my professor was like, "Look, it was until they put her in that dress, and then all of a sudden she becomes really sexy." And I rewatched it and I was, like, horrified because honestly, it was one of my favorite movies in the '90s, and I watched it again and I was like, "No, it has nothing to do with her outfit and everything to do with the music." And
Hmm.
I found that really beautiful because the fact that she was wearing this, like, sweet little LBD made no difference whatsoever. They put the music on and suddenly she got into her body and was able to kind of go from this uber nerdy, terrified woman into a little sex pot who knew exactly what she was doing. And I thought it was beautiful and empowering, and where even my professor tried to make it into something, kind of sexist and dark and unpleasant, it really wasn't. It was this beautiful moment of a woman, like, embracing her body and being kinda taken there by music, not by anything else.
And what's really interesting about that scene with Arnold Schwarzenegger as the husband, she doesn't know it, but it's her husband in the room, and so
It's
his side of it is equally interesting because he's there to help her feel better about herself. That's the whole point of this whole charade,
right.
is to build her up, give her the things that she needs to finally come out of her shell and be who he always has known her to be, right? So there's an incredibly powerful other side to that scene when you think about it from the side of a marriage and a husband and a wife. And of course it's got that great fall where she misses the pole and she falls, it comes right back up.
Just bounces up like a spring. Yeah, that's a really good one,
It's
and a good
fantastic.
point. Yeah.
That's a good one. Um, See, I always think of and this one's from a novel. It's from George R. R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire series. I believe it's in the fifth book, Dance with Dragons, and it's in Asha Greyjoy chapter. And it's this really powerful chapter because she's the captain of a ship in a society where that's rare for a woman to be the captain of a ship. And the captain of a ship is sort of this little mini king of his little mini kingdom, which is the ship, right? And the crew. And so it's a position of great power and requires everyone to respect the captain. It requires a lot of her to be tougher than every man beneath her on that deck. and she has to be the alpha all the time
Mm.
on that ship. And in this chapter, she goes from a scene where she's being the badass captain on the ship to going to her quarters and apparently getting sexually assaulted by another crew member. And he attacks her and they're wrestling around, and it ends up as a sex scene, not a rape scene. The whole time you're reading it, you think you're reading a rape scene, and you slowly realize they're a couple. This is their thing because this is the only place where she can be vulnerable.
Right.
This bedroom with this one person that she trusts is the only place where she can let her guard down and be vulnerable to and not have to be the alpha. And it reveals so much about her character and tells you so much about their relationship in that one scene in that one chapter. So that's the one that I always think of as an example for this, because it does so much. Like, not only does it have the sort of like scare of what you think the scene is, but then sort of like the twist of what the scene really is and the realization and that kind of like emotional catharsis is pretty interesting. I want to go ahead and not waste much more time. Let's get to the questions in the chat because I want to get to as many of them as possible. I'm scrolling up first so that I get them all. Let's go ahead and play the thing as I pull them up. Okay. So, first question comes from... There it is. Is Regina Grimm a pen name? If not, it is a badass name.
Thank you for asking, Adam. It absolutely is. I am by day a very corporate cog in the wheel of finance, and so erotic fairy tales I keep in my side pocket. And I know, thank you. It is. I was super excited to. It took a little bit of time to pick it, but yeah, Regina
Especially
Grimm lives
with the
on.
genre that you're in, Grimm is just very appropriate.
Thank you.
How did you manage to get the Snow White character? I had my own idea with that IP, but I heard Disney had the rights. How did you get on with the Mouse of Mouse?
No, it's public domain. So the original Grimm fairy tales are part of public domain, and so that's where I went from.
Yeah, you can't redo the Disney version, but you can redo the original version.
That's true. There's no queen falling off of a cliff. There are no seven dwarves. There's no cutting out of a heart. Those are all Disney parts, but the original content, I took it straight out of a like a direct translation from the German of the original tale. But thanks for asking. House of Mouse.
Would you consider writing crossovers to other Evil Queen realms?
Ooh, I would consider writing just about anything. I'm kind of fascinated. I want to know more about what that means to you and how I could dig into that.
What it means to me is, like you have so many other evil queens besides the one for Snow White, the one for, or you can get into like, the evil stepmother for Cinderella, that sort of thing. I think that's what she means is other, evil queen fairy tale type stories.
Oh, I think it is in my future. I just strongly believe that.
Like magic systems and sci-fi technology systems, there are rules that can be bent in the fairy tale tropes. How far can you bend the rules and keep the fairy tale?
Ooh, again, another. Okay, you're
It's a
like,
great question.
that is
That's a
such
really
a
great
great
question.
question. Okay, I feel like when it comes to fairy tales, there's things that people expect, specifically the happily ever after, and that there's a lesson in there somewhere. I think that's my understanding of fairy tales at the beginning was you were supposed to learn something because people were illiterate for the most part. You learned from either, seeing carvings on church walls or being told stories throughout that were passed down through generations. So whether the story is simply stay out of the woods or don't take things from strangers, there's always some kind of a lesson in it. I think I've bent almost everything other than those. Those are the two that I held strong to. Um, it still feels like fairy tale because there is this there's the inevitable of the happily ever after, and you kind of already know where things are going. And there's always some kind of justice, I think, as well. That's how I define fairy tale, that, good always wins and bad never wins.
Hmm.
So I think I held true to that. And actually, that
All
was part
right.
of the hardest part of the whole series, trying to figure out what was supposed to happen at the end.
Yeah, it's got to be an interesting challenge to make a well-known fairy tale, have a sort of not necessarily surprising ending, but a satisfying ending that
Mhm.
isn't exactly like every other one.
Yeah, it got rewritten a bunch of different times.
Would you consider doing a more modern fairy tale or lesser known mythology?
Yes. So I mean, Neil Gaiman is one of my absolute favorites and his whole American Gods. And I've been painting a house for the last 5 days. So actually, if you see paint anywhere on my body, that's where it comes from. So I listened to the whole of The Sandman, which they're 50 hours at a piece. So if that helps you understand how much I've been up a ladder, I would absolutely love to. So I think it's a matter of, I'm going to be looking for feedback of what to do next, but I would like to explore the lesser known fairy tales. I still love me some Grimm, so I might go back to their anthology, which is obscenely large, and pick through some good ones. But yeah, there's just so much. It's a matter of, how do I pick what is next?
Do you have any desire to go outside of the fantasy genre in general, and play in other genres?
Yes. So under other pen names, which again have yet to be published, I have written the very sweet. I've written some very sweet romances that are kind of deal with some more real problems, mental health, and mourning and loss, and those kind of things, wrapped up in kind of a sweet and saucy little package. So I'm hoping to, once I kind of get my balance in place, I'm hoping to put those out there. I've written a trilogy of young adult fantasy books also that I'd like to, one of these days I will get around to publishing them, but they'll be under different pen names, so it'll be,
Sure.
yeah, that's yeah, I'd love to walk in these different sides. The other one that I might also publish under this pen name was I wrote a, how do I put this? A paranormal demi erotica. I guess it was erotica. It's not quite as erotic as what I'm currently writing. It was a little more romance, but with a ghost. So again, very dark. Yeah. So there's a ghost to the whole thing.
I love
Again, we
it.
deal with mental illness and trying to, and just overcoming and independence, and these other pieces that I think we need to talk about more as a society. So
Nice.
it's on my docket. I would love to just have a million hours a day that I could get all this stuff done. But one every 2 months. I'm
It
not going to
definitely
keep doing
sounds,
that.
yeah, like you have you have a lot going on. Um, so I gleaned from your website that we are both coffee lovers. My favorite coffee I've ever had is from Kookaburra in St. Augustine. What's the best coffee you've ever had?
Best coffee I've ever had, hands down, was on it was on the Viet Cong, oh, for the love of Pete. I was on a river in Vietnam. I was in a boat with my husband, and we were in the floating market. It was very early. We may have been hungover. And this boat pulled up alongside us and served us Vietnamese coffee, like is in the middle of a river. It was like a floating barista, and it was the most amazing coffee I've ever had. You could, like, the spoon just stood straight up in it. It was, you could just chew it. It was incredible. And it was followed swiftly by another boat that gave us beer. So really, it was the best day. I think that was the best beer I've ever had, right after the best coffee. So yeah, it's
That sounds awesome, and I understand that you've done a lot of traveling. Did COVID put a big stop on you for a long time, or have you gotten to traveling again since, or are you still waiting to get back to it?
still waiting to get back to it. We did get to, let's see, where we have been. No, well, my husband does. He's a competitive athlete, so he was able to get down to the States for a competition, and we have another one in Texas coming up in November. So we'll be heading down to the southern states, enjoying some southern hospitality. Can't wait in November. and have like a couple of weeks down there to do some touring around. So COVID we still got to fly in. We got the COVID tests all lined up and everything, so we'll be as safe as can possibly be. But yeah, hoping to get back to traveling soon, because it's a big part of our lives.
Just that one story from Vietnam, man. Like it makes me want to. I've always wanted to travel, but money, and now I got kids and jobs and blah 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 blah.
It is a thing, right? It's yeah.
Would you write an Aesop's erotica like the scorpion as a femme fatale, or Greek myths Medusa as reclaiming her power after Poseidon? It sounds like you want to write these.
I know. I'm like, dude, I just want to read what you're
ideas.
writing.
Yeah, you have ideas already. I think
Send me your links. I'm fascinated by Greek mythology. I was huge into it. I was a very nerdy child. I loved, like, I know all of the Greek myths back in the day, and like some of the um there's so much, like, that folklore is it's so powerful, and it's such a root of humanity that I don't know where would I start, but these are yeah, no, I when you write your books, would you please send me all of the links, because I want to read what you're writing. Great ideas.
All right. So I think I'm going to hit you with the last question, which is, I understand that you still have a day job and this is
Yes.
sort of your side gig. What are your hopes and dreams for your career as an author? Are you looking to someday make that your main a career path and leave behind you're doing now, or is this forever a side? Like what are you thinking?
In a perfect world, this would absolutely be, I'm gonna say maybe mostly full time. I love what I do. I get to work with adults. I teach people how to work in finance, and it is incredibly rewarding, and I'm very passionate about it. Having said that, it is exhausting, and the company I work for, though they are amazing, they run faster than I run, and sometimes I am just so exhausted that doing I don't have children, and my husband is incredibly self-sufficient, and my cat, who has been crying outside the door this entire time, again, doesn't take a lot of work. So to be able to have a little bit more space in my life and to fill that space with writing is like my ultimate dream. So yeah, I would love to be a full-time writer who dabbles in corporate education instead
Yeah.
of the other way around.
Yeah.
That's the big dream.
Same. The dream is being able to walk in and put that 2 weeks notice down, or even better, not even not even do that.
Just kick your boss's desk over.
Just burn that bridge right to the ground. All right. I'm gonna give you the floor here for a moment. Go ahead and let the folks at home know uh, where they can find you. Your links are down below, and what they can expect coming up next from you.
Deal. Okay. So yeah, currently everything I have is on Kindle and Kindle Unlimited. I'm hoping to branch out, get actual paper copies and things soon. So stay tuned for those. But yeah, you can find me on Goodreads, and I am on the Amazon, and the links are down below. And 3 books are out, published, ready to go, and the fourth one is in the bag. My cover, Adrian put it up so gently for me. So that was the cover for the new book. That's coming out on the 26th. So keep an eye out for that. And that's about it. Yeah, all of my socials I think are downstairs as well. So feel free to join me on any of those. I love to hear from people. So feedback, questions, comments, whatever, I am here for you. And yeah, this has just been so cool. Thank you.
I'm gonna take that from you. I'm gonna start calling it downstairs. The description below is now officially downstairs. I like it. Um, I made these things here, and by golly, I'm gonna show them before we leave. So here we go. uh, so first off, this thing is, I don't know if you guys can see it. My Wi-Fi is probably. I'm gonna restart it. Here we go. There we go. If you want to be a guest, I'm scheduling season 4. Link downstairs. Click there. Fill it out. And you can be a guest on this channel. It's pretty simple. And then I'll get back to you. And lastly, Miss Grimm and I are going to record the podcast directly after this. And so if you would like to hear more from Miss Grimm, catch us on Thursday at 11 a.m. When the episode airs. I will at least be in the live chat for the premiere. But yeah, we're going to record that right after this. So you guys, everybody coming out to the episode, you guys are awesome. Those of you that were here early, thank you so very much. You were here and talking in the chat before we were even live, and I can't explain why you guys are so awesome. You just are. You guys are fantastic. Okay. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Over to all of Regina's stuff downstairs, and
Love it.
that one was a little funny. All right, links are downstairs there, and go check out her stuff. Follow her on Instagram. She has an awesome Instagram. And let's get it, guys. Okay, thank you so much, Miss Grimm. Thank you so much, everybody in the chat. We're gonna go ahead and head on out here.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.